I found over here by my house. This was built, guys, thousands of years ago. There's no way the French built this. This is 8 miles long. It's overlooking the old remnants of the ancient Missouri River from back God knows how long ago. I had to find this myself in the topography, and every professional missed it. Now, guess what was built here? See this big thing right here? This is nuclear radioactive stockpile from the Manhattan Project that was here. The Manhattan Project just so happened to build their nuclear processing facility for World War freaking II here at Defiance, Missouri, which is right here along this river right here, and at the StarForts. And they cordoned all this off and made this a giant government facility where now you can live here. But guess what? As a kid, I used to come out here and climb in the old radioactive silos and go up to the top of the old uranium mills. I didn't know they were uranium mills at the time, but why did the U.S. government build another one of these radiological facilities there? Because I already showed them to you out here on the West Coast. We got our nuke test sites. We've got our nuclear bombers taking off in the middle of it.
Same exact spot.
Nuclear. Oh, and I didn't show you the nuclear on
focal spots.
The side of the Facebook data center. The Facebook data center and Apple data center on the right side, just like Area 51 and the nuke sites, all the way up here is the Hanford Nuclear Waste Storage Facility from the Manhattan Project. They're all on the sides of these StarForts.
It seems like an electrical circuit formula that's repeated over and over.
Exactly. And welcome, Eric. We got Eric Hecker back. Welcome, good sir.
Had some technical difficulties before. I apologize.
No worries. Can hear you loud and clear now, brother. Good to have you.
Excellent. I was enjoying the conversation before. I was just on the tail end of my work shift, so I did not catch as much as I wanted to, just bits and pieces. But it's been fascinating, the work that you guys have been doing into these StarForts. As a tradesman, I've always been eyeballing these structures as way beyond the descriptions of what we were given. It just, what we were told doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, right? Like they're just too complex and too much resources and yeah, just it's so unpractical and over the top and just ridiculous for the time period that they claimed that they were needed it makes zero sense. There has to be something so much more to it. And then when you get into fractal array antennas and just fractals in general and geometry, it all starts making a lot more sense.
You know how long it would take us to move that amount of Earth nowadays with all the massive heavy equipment that we have? I just look at those as job sites, and I just try to imagine how these guys got this work done without the tools that I have available to me. It's like, you got to be kidding me. There's no way. It's like, I don't care what you pay me, and you're like, hey, grab a shovel, Eric, and go help those guys out. Like, no way, no. I quit like immediately. We're not digging this. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
it's lunacy.
Bang on,
it would have to be, I would think, frequency of some kind. I mean, I would think cymatics frequency. You know how, I mean, when you vibrate sand or salt on a speaker and it gives you the shape of a whatever, that it could happen on a huge basis. And you were down in Antarctica, right? They're saying you were in Antarctica?
Yes, I spent
Is it really? Is it truly
Station.
cold? Is it truly cold?
Oh yeah, it's cold. It's cold for sure. There's no denying that. It's ruthlessly cold.
How about the summer though? Like compared, like is it hot in the summer when it's 24-hour sun though? Like does it
It's a relativity thing for sure, and there's a lunacy. So the hottest day that I was there was actually Christmas Eve, December 24th of 2010, and we got as hot as -5 degrees Fahrenheit, and it felt hot because of the atmosphere conditions being so thin. We were outside in t-shirts and you got too hot. The sun was cooking you. You did not feel cold.
Wow.
That's wild. That's so wild.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
It felt odd.
Did they let you go anywhere? I mean, if you wanted to go somewhere, could you like just take off and go somewhere? Or do you have to get permission to go? Obviously, the Russians have their spot and the different people have different spots.
Certainly you would need to get permissions if you wanted to get anywhere far. I mean, you can't commandeer a plane or a helicopter or anything. Actually, there's no helicopters
like a
that far. It's just
Ski-Doo
planes.
or something.
I mean,
All-terrain vehicle?
I took a snow machine at the tail end of my winter. I was there for close to a year at that point, and I absolutely scored a snow machine that I was not supposed to have. And I drove that until basically the facility, the South Pole Station, was like a dot on the horizon. But at that point, there's just nothing. There's nothing to see. I mean, it's an ice field at 10,300 feet of actual elevation. It is completely smooth and barren of anything to look at.
Is it really that high? I didn't even realize. 10,000 feet.
Correct.
It's
10,300 feet. The continent of Antarctica is on average the coldest, highest, and driest. It's 0% humidity. Literally.
It explains why it's so cold. The height
it's
alone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The seismic, see, the thing that I've got about Antarctica, and I don't doubt that Antarctica exists, or I've showed it, with the shape of it. It's shaped like a pentagonal star fort. And that to me, it seems like there would be some seismic that would come from there. And instead, the entire 12 years that I've been online, we don't have not one single report of an earthquake down there below the ice, which we should pick up. I mean, we should be able to pick it up down in the plate, wherever that is down below. And then all the
normal outfits that pick these things up aren't picking stuff up there?
Correct. We don't pick up any seismic, and it's not reported to us. And the weirdest thing happened. A few years ago in 2016, I did a fundraiser for my channel, like a few $1,000s or something like that. And a fellow shows up. His name was Professor Astor. And Professor Astor showed up below my fundraiser. He's from the University of Colorado. And he called me a fraud and said, and furthermore, went off on me basically and told people not to donate to my fundraiser. It's really odd.
What was he calling you a fraud about?
Well, this is odd. He was talking about fracking earthquakes, and earthquakes can't be caused and induced by man-made drilling. Now, here's the weird part. He then went on to go down to Antarctica to install a bunch of new seismic sensors to detect the seismic activity from Antarctica.
So your work opposes his work, and he was worried about his grant?
I have no idea. It was really weird. I didn't know who the guy was. But he ended up going down to Antarctica and installing a bunch of seismic, which we don't get any info on. And did they ever, do you know of any earthquakes that were ever detected down there while you were there?
I don't. But then the other thing, like the first thought that crosses my mind is you have 2 miles of ice. Is it possible that that's a very effective dampener so that you don't feel the effects?
No, I think that would actually, in fact, cause more, or at least on the smaller scale quakes. You'd think they'd be happening all the time from the constant ice shifting.
Well, I mean, that did happen all the time. So how do you make a distinction? Like, we had ice quakes all the time, but I couldn't tell you that it's an ice quake or an earthquake. What's the difference?
Right. With the fracture. Yeah, like with the fracture on an ice quake. I would think that it probably would look like an explosion or something. I don't know, but like it's really cool to think about that down below the ice sheet that there's of course the plate that it's scraping along, and then down in the plate there should be seismic that gets detected 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 50 kilometers down in the crust, down in the plate, and it doesn't get reported to us. I'm just wondering if there's some other reason. Like I found this stuff from
I would say this immediately. There's a massive lag on the info coming off the ice.
That would make sense. They might they report it later.
If something happened, the general public's not going to hear about it for 10 years. That's how academia works. That's how the whole entire system works.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, any scientist anywhere on the planet, Antarctica is not exclusive to this snail's pace of dissemination of information.
True.
Yeah, it is the last giant ice wall, and that it holds the answers to humans' past or to a lot of the mysteries of our realm. I just wanted to point out this old map there, Dutch. You were mentioning the inner sea, the old inner sea that was on the west side that went up to the Salt Lake there on the previous existence of North America. probably before the Ice Age or whatnot, the catastrophe. But here is a map that actually has it depicted there before explorers have made it back over to the north area of North America after European recolonization of whatever genocide or reset catastrophe happened.
Totally. And when you look at it too, it matches up with where Salt Lake City goes back to, where the old, so we still have the remnants of the old ocean that's still there. Speaking of the old ocean and interior oceans, that gets back to Antarctica. We saw that there was this video from Byrd back in the first expedition or second. It was the Lando Lakes. You guys know about that, right? The Lando Lakes.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh my God, this is crazy. It's declassified declassified film from the 1920s from the U.S. Army Archives, or no, I'm sorry, U.S. Navy Archives, a Byrd down there. And when Byrd, it was maybe the second expedition, and they took
I don't think it was High Jump. I think it was the one after High Jump.
Right, they took planes and they flew all the way along and went interior to Antarctica, and they said they flew all the way into the very center. But I was mind blown to see that. And they found this place that they called Lando Lakes. And they said it was several hundred square miles of an area that was staying warm in the middle of winter. And that they landed their seaplane to take water measurements.
It had light. It was lit up though, Mike. It would have been North America's winter and their summer because it was daylight in that filmage, because there was some footage of it that came out that's original documented footage of these lakes you're talking about and them being de-iced and melted.
Yeah, it would have been summer down there. Exactly.
Yeah, for it to be lit, it would have
been dark if they were flying during nighttime, yeah. But they found it and they said that I don't know. I'll go get the before we go, I will actually get the it's from a channel called Periscope Films, who restores old film footage that's donated to them. And they got the U.S. government. So check out Periscope Films. They've got it. But
totally.
And now
I have a curiosity on the way to figure stuff out on that direction, because I am curious about what's going on down there as well. And what we can start to conclude is if we know what type of plane it is, people can actually look up, like, it's going to take a very specific flight pattern. This hole has to be a particularly large hole for you to fly a plane in.
Oh, these were freshwater lakes, Eric, and the footage. I've seen the footage too.
It's like on the surface.
Pull it up here.
I'm not denying it. I'm just trying to figure out how we can find it.
Yeah, it was.
Oh yeah, I'm saying, like, when a plane comes in for landing, it doesn't just see a hole in the ground and then dive down into it. You know what I'm saying?
No, it was freshwater lakes that they saw. So no, this one that Mike's talking about, because there's two stories. There's the story of when Admiral Byrd went into the center and experienced the inner earthness and whatnot. But then there's this second one that Dutch is talking about right now. That is where they saw a bunch of freshwater turquoise-colored lakes with no snow, like melted rock beaches, pebble beaches, and just beautiful
if you're talking
colors.
On the surface, that could be everywhere.
Yeah, on the surface. It was on the surface, but
what he found,
rock and bedstone. It wasn't a glacial lake. They were like actual lakes in the bedrock, and that it was an amphibious plane. Maybe it was from Operation High Jump because they did have the aircraft.
I'd be curious to know what the plane
it landed, and there's color footage of them in it.
I'm sure there's tons of video from on the surface. I was curious about the inner one and what plane they were saying was for that, because then calculations could. I mean, there could be flight paths and hole dimensions figured out.
Yeah, he landed. What Byrd described as they landed. They first spied it from above, and they saw that there was no snow or no ice or anything, and that it was down to the surface. And then they landed the plane in the waters to test and see, and they found that the waters were somewhat temperate. And this was going on for hundreds of square miles, but they didn't test them all, obviously. But what they landed in was found to be temperate. And they specifically said that the shores were lined with fresh coal on the surface of the on the surface.
Right, what's it, guys? I'm gonna head off. Thank you for having me. Sorry I couldn't stay for too long, but feel a little bit tired after the event.
Oh man!
So, Dutch, I need to get a way to get in touch with you, because we definitely need to do a show together, talk about some stuff. I'd love to pick your brain and go over some proper history, And also, Eric, you sound like someone I want to talk to you as well. So
Sure.
if we could arrange something at some point, that'd be absolutely brilliant. And Gerald, you as well.